Ladies, let me tell you something. When a man pulls away, your first instinct might be to wonder, what did I do wrong? You start overanalyzing every conversation, every text, every little detail, trying to pinpoint the exact moment things shifted. But let me stop you right there. Because the truth is, when a man goes silent, it's not always about you. Men and women process emotions differently. While women find comfort in expressing their thoughts and feelings, men often internalize them. It's not that he doesn't care, and it's not that he's lost interest overnight. It's that he's wired to withdraw when he's overwhelmed, uncertain, or trying to figure things out in his own way. See, society tells men to be strong, to be providers, to have it all together. So when life starts piling up, work stress, personal struggles, doubts about the future, he might not know how to communicate that. Instead, he pulls back, needing space to sort through his emotions without feeling pressured. Now, I know what you're thinking, but if he cared, wouldn't he just talk to me about it? And that's where a lot of women make the mistake of assuming men operate the same way they do. When a woman is feeling distant, she wants reassurance. She wants connection. She wants to talk it out. But when a man is feeling distant, he wants space. He needs to retreat into his own mind to feel like he's in control of his emotions again. And here's the kicker. When you chase after him in those moments, trying to fix things, trying to get answers, it doesn't pull him closer, it pushes him further away. So what do you do when he goes silent? You don't panic, you don't beg for an explanation, you don't try to force a response, you simply let him have that space. I know that's not easy, but here's what happens when you do. Instead of feeling pressured, he starts to miss your presence. He starts to realize that the connection he had with you wasn't just something temporary. And the more he sits with that realization, the more he starts questioning why he pulled away in the first place. Now, some of you might be wondering, but what if he's pulling away because he's losing interest? Let me ask you this. Why would you want to hold on to a man who's losing interest in you? If he can walk away without a second thought, if he doesn't care enough to figure things out, then he's already shown you where he stands. And in that case, the best thing you can do is let him go. Because the right man, the man who truly values you, he might need space sometimes, but he's not going to risk losing you. See, the problem isn't that men pull away. The problem is that too many women think it's their job to pull him back. You don't need to do that. Your energy should be focused on you, your happiness, your peace, your purpose. When you stop making a man the center of your world, that's when he starts realizing your value. That's when he starts questioning, wait, she's not chasing me. She's not begging for my attention. And that thought alone, that's what draws him back. So the next time he goes quiet, don't sit around waiting for his next move. Don't obsess over his silence. Take that time to level up your own life. Focus on your goals. Pour into yourself the way you've been pouring into him. Because here's the truth. When you're secure in who you are, when you know your worth, you don't chase, you attract. And a high-value woman doesn't run after a man who can't decide what he wants. She stands in her power and lets the right man step up to meet her there. Let him feel your absence. Let him wonder what's changed. And when he finally comes back around, you won't have to question if he really wants to be there. He'll show you with his actions. Now let's talk about why he comes back after the silence. Because some of you are sitting there wondering, why does he disappear like he doesn't care, only to show up like nothing happened? And more importantly, what does that even mean? See, when a man pulls away, it creates a space that wasn't there before. And in that space, something powerful happens. He starts to feel the weight of your absence. In the beginning, he might not notice it. He's distracted, caught up in whatever was on his mind. Maybe it was work. Maybe it was his own emotions. Maybe it was just his need for independence. But then after a while, something shifts. He reaches for his phone and your name isn't there like it used to be. He goes through his day and that comfort of knowing you're there waiting is suddenly gone. He starts to wonder, what is she doing? Is she thinking about me? And here's where psychology kicks in. People crave what they can no longer assume is theirs. When he was pulling away, he had control. He knew you cared. He knew he could take space and you'd still be there waiting for his return. But when you don't chase, when you don't beg, when you don't try to pull him back, that control is gone. And let me tell you something. Men don't like to feel like they've lost control. That's why he suddenly pops back up with that, hey, how have you been? Text like he never left. That's why he suddenly finds a reason to reach out, checking in like he's been thinking about you this whole time. Because the moment he starts feeling like he's losing you, his instincts kick in. He starts remembering the good times, the connection, the way you made him feel. And instead of thinking about why he left, he starts thinking about why he wants to come back. But let's be clear about something. Just because a man comes back doesn't mean he's changed. Some men return because they genuinely realize they've made a mistake. They see your value. They understand what they risk losing. But others come back simply to see if they still can. They're not necessarily ready to step up. They just don't like the idea of you moving on without them. And that's where a lot of women get caught up. They mistake a man's return for a sign that he's serious this time. They think, oh, he must really care about me if he came back. But the real question isn't why he came back. It's what he's willing to do now that he's here. See, when you've truly stepped into your worth, you don't just let a man waltz back in without proving himself. You don't reward inconsistency. You don't act like his return is some grand gesture when all he did was show up. Because showing up is easy. Staying, building, committing, that's what takes effort. And if he's not coming back with real intention, with real actions, then all he's doing is disturbing your peace. That's why I always say, when he comes back, don't be so quick to open the door. Let him knock. Let him wait. Let him see that you are not the same woman he left. Because the truth is, you've grown in his absence. You focused on yourself. You built a life that isn't centered around him. And that right there, that's what makes him crave you even more. Not because you played games, not because you manipulated the situation, but because you became the kind of woman a man doesn't want to lose. So the next time he reaches out after his silence, don't rush to respond. Don't drop everything just because he finally realized what you already knew, that you were worth staying for. Let him prove that he belongs in your life, not just as someone who comes and goes, but as someone who's willing to stay, to show up, to be consistent. Because a man who truly values you, he won't just return. He'll make sure you never have to question him again. There's a shift that happens when you stop chasing and start attracting. When you stop worrying about what a man wants and start focusing on what you want. And that shift, that's what makes you irresistible. See, too many people think attraction is about looks, about what you say, about playing games to keep someone's interest. But real attraction, the kind that makes a man crave you, the kind that makes him see you as a woman he doesn't want to lose, is about energy. It's about confidence. It's about the way you carry yourself, the way you value yourself, the way you create a life so full and so complete that any man who wants to be a part of it has to earn his place. Men are drawn to what feels rare, what feels special, what feels like it can't be easily replaced. And the moment you understand that, everything changes. Because when you move through life knowing that you are the prize, you stop settling for half-hearted effort. You stop waiting by the phone. You stop giving chances to men who haven't shown through their actions that they even deserve your time. You stop trying to prove yourself to someone who should already see your value. And the best part, when you shift your mindset, when you step into your power, when you stop being so available, so predictable, so easy to access, that's when they start paying attention. Because now you're not just another option. You're not just another woman who's willing to give and give and give while getting the bare minimum in return. No, you're someone he actually has to work for, someone he has to invest in, someone he has to earn. Now, that doesn't mean you play games. That doesn't mean you act distant just to get a reaction. No, what it means is that you genuinely live your life in a way where you are your own first priority. You are focused on your own growth, your own happiness, your own peace. And because of that, your energy shifts. You stop seeking validation from a man. You stop looking for his attention to confirm your worth. Instead, you let your presence do the talking. Because here's what happens when you step into this mindset. When a man feels like he can't just have you whenever he wants, he starts thinking about you more. He starts wondering what you're up to. He starts realizing that you're not sitting around waiting for him to call. And suddenly, the tables have turned. Now he's the one questioning. Now he's the one overanalyzing. Now he's the one wondering if he is enough for you. And that shift, that's what creates attraction. That's what makes him crave you, not because you manipulated him, not because you played mind games, but because you became the kind of woman a man knows is worth the effort. And I know what some of you might be thinking, but what if I push him away? What if he loses interest? And I'll tell you this, if a man loses interest just because you value yourself, just because you expect consistency, just because you don't hand over your time and energy to someone who hasn't earned it, then let him go, let him walk. Because the kind of man who is worth your time, he will step up, he will match your energy, he will see your value and act accordingly. So if you want to make a man crave you, stop making him the center of your world. Stop waiting for his texts. Stop rearranging your life around what he wants. Instead, build a life so full, so vibrant, so fulfilling that he realizes if he wants to be a part of it, he has to bring his best. Because the moment you do that, the moment you fully step into your power, you won't have to chase. You won't have to convince. You won't have to prove anything. Because the right man, he'll know. And he'll make sure you know too. So he comes back. After days, maybe weeks of silence, he's back like nothing happened. Maybe it's a casual, hey, how you been text. Maybe it's a deep, heartfelt message about how much he's been thinking about you. Maybe even calls, like the time apart made him realize something. And I know what you're thinking, what do I do now? Because part of you is relieved. Part of you missed him. Part of you wants to believe this time will be different, but this is the moment that truly matters. See, a lot of women make the mistake of thinking that a man returning is the victory. Like his reappearance means everything is solved. Like it's proof of how much he really cares. But showing up is not the win. Anybody can come back when they feel like it. The real question isn't why he returned. It's how you respond. Because the way you handle this moment will determine whether you set the standard for something real or just fall back into the same cycle all over again. And let me tell you something. If you welcome him back with open arms, if you respond immediately, if you act like nothing happened, you're teaching him that disappearing has no consequences. You're showing him that he can step in and out of your life whenever it's convenient for him. And that's not love. That's not respect. That's not how a man who truly values you should ever be allowed to treat you. So what do you do when he comes back? You pause. You breathe. You remember who you are. You don't rush to reply just because he suddenly decided to reach out. You take your time. You let him feel the uncertainty of not knowing where he stands with you. Because trust me, he felt pretty comfortable when he walked away. He knew you cared. He knew you'd be there. And now he needs to wonder. He needs to feel for the first time that he might have actually lost you. And when you do respond, you do it from a place of strength, not desperation. No over explaining, no emotional outpouring, just calm, controlled confidence. Because what he's really looking for in that moment is whether he still has access to you. He wants to know if he can walk back in without earning his place. And the answer to that should be no. Because here's the truth. If a man leaves and comes back, the only way you can truly know if he's serious is by making sure he earns you this time. No instant reconnection, no jumping back to where you left off. He needs to prove through his actions that he's not just back for convenience, but because he actually wants to build something real with you. And a man who truly values you, he won't be scared off by that. He won't get frustrated that you're not just handing your heart back over. Instead, he'll respect you more for it. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but what if I push him away? What if he decides I'm being difficult and leaves again? And to that I say, let him. If a man is only willing to stay when it's easy, when it requires nothing from him, then he was never going to stay in the first place. A real man, a man who sees your worth, is not going to walk away just because you have standards. See, you have to understand something. The way a man treats you is a direct reflection of what you allow. If you keep letting him come and go, he will keep coming and going. If you keep making it easy for him to return without any accountability, he will never change. But the moment you start valuing yourself enough to demand more, to demand consistency, to demand effort, to demand real commitment, you will see exactly who he is. Because a man who is serious about you will not be afraid of putting in the work. So don't let his return distract you from what you deserve. Don't let a few words or empty gestures make you forget what you really want. Love is not about who shows up when it's convenient for them. Love is about who stays, who chooses you every single day without hesitation, without games, without needing to be convinced. And the only way you'll ever know if he's that man is by making sure that this time, when he comes back, he has to prove it. A man will only value what he has to work for. That's just how human nature works. We don't appreciate the things that come easy. We appreciate the things we had to earn. And when it comes to relationships, that principle doesn't change. If you make it too easy for a man, if you give all of yourself before he's even proven that he deserves it, you're setting the stage for him to take you for granted. And let me tell you something, when a man doesn't have to put in effort, when he doesn't feel like there's any challenge, when he knows you'll always be there no matter how he acts, he won't value you the way you deserve to be valued. Think about it. When you give a child a toy they didn't ask for, they'll play with it for a moment, but then they toss it aside, move on to something else. But when you make them earn that toy, when they've been waiting for it, working for it, counting down the days to get it, they treat it differently. They take care of it. They treasure it. They hold on to it. That's not just about children. That's people. That's us. We all cherish what we've invested in, what we've had to put effort into. Now, some of you might be thinking, but if he really likes me, he shouldn't have to work for it. And that's the mistake too many people make. Because it's not about playing games or making it hard just for the sake of it. No, it's about creating a standard that says if you want me in your life, you have to show up consistently. You have to be intentional. You have to prove that you are here for the right reasons. That means not just falling for words, but paying attention to actions. A man can say anything. He can tell you he misses you, that he thinks about you all the time, that he doesn't want to lose you. But if those words aren't backed by effort, by consistency, by showing up, then what are they really worth? Too many women fall for potential. They fall for the idea of what a man could be instead of what he's actually showing them. They hear, I want to be better, but they don't stop and ask, okay, but what are you doing to prove that? And this is where your strength comes in. Because when you know your worth, when you refuse to accept the bare minimum, you create an environment where only the right kind of man can thrive. The one who is serious, the one who is willing to put in the work, the one who sees you as someone he doesn't want to lose. See, a lot of men will pursue you when they feel like they have competition. When they think there's a chance they could lose you, they step up, they put in effort, they do the things they should have been doing all along. But the difference between a man who truly values you and a man who just wants to win is that one will keep putting in the work even after he has you. And the other will go right back to who he was once he feels like the chase is over. And that's why it's so important to hold your standards no matter what stage of the relationship you're in. Because a real man, a man who is ready, a man who actually wants you, won't just chase you. He will choose you every single day. He will continue to show up, not because he's afraid of losing you, but because he genuinely values having you in his life. And the only way you can tell the difference between a temporary chase and a man who is serious is by seeing how he acts when he knows he has you. That's why you don't rush to give all of yourself to someone who hasn't earned that place. That's why you don't reward inconsistency. That's why you don't let words distract you from actions. Because when a man sees that you require effort, that you won't settle for less than you deserve, he will either step up or he will step aside. And either way, you win. One thing you need to understand is that when it comes to relationships, consistency is everything. It's not the grand gestures that make a lasting impression. It's the small daily actions that show up over time. So when a man comes back after disappearing for a while, the real question you need to ask is he consistent? Because it's one thing to show up once or twice, but can he show up every day? Can he stay consistent even when life gets complicated? Can he prove through his actions that you are truly a priority in his life? See, a lot of us get caught up in the idea of potential. We see the good moments, the words, the promises, and we think that's enough. We think, well, he said he was going to change, or he told me he was serious this time. But here's the hard truth. Words are easy. Promises are easy. But real commitment, that's shown in actions, and actions over time. It's the little things that build trust. It's the follow-through. It's the times he chooses to be there for you, even when it's inconvenient. It's the effort he puts into making sure you feel valued, not just when it's convenient for him, but when it requires him to step up. Consistency shows a man's true intentions. A man who is serious about you won't just disappear for weeks or months, then show up and expect everything to be the same. He knows that if he wants to make things work, he has to prove it every single day. He has to demonstrate that he's not just paying lip service, but that his actions align with his words. And if he's inconsistent, if he only shows up when it's on his terms, then you have to ask yourself, is this the kind of man I want to invest my time and energy in? Now, some of you might be thinking, but what if he's really busy? What if there's a legitimate reason for his silence? And listen, I get it. Life can get in the way sometimes. We all have our own challenges and responsibilities. But here's the thing. A man who truly wants to be a part of your life will find a way to show you that even in the midst of busyness, you are still important to him. He won't go silent for months and then expect everything to just fall back into place. If he really cares, he'll make the time. He'll make the effort. And let me tell you something else. When you're consistent with your own boundaries, your own self-worth, your own expectations. It teaches him how to treat you. When you allow inconsistency, when you let silence slide, you're sending a message that you're willing to accept whatever he gives, no matter how little it may be. But when you hold yourself to the same standards you expect from him, when you require consistency, when you make it clear that you're not going to settle for anything less than someone who values you and your time, that's when the game changes. Now, I'm not saying that you should be rigid, that you should be inflexible. Relationships require a level of understanding and compromise. But consistency in how a man treats you isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. It's about making the effort to show up, to be there, and to prove through actions that you're worth his time. It's about whether he shows up for you consistently, not just when it's easy or when it fits his schedule, but when it requires him to show true commitment. So, when he comes back after a period of silence, pay attention. Look at how he shows up. Look at whether he's consistent with his actions. Look at whether he's willing to prove that he values you, not just in the big moments, but in the small, everyday ways, because that's the real test. That's how you'll know whether he's serious or just passing through. And here's the bottom line. If he's inconsistent, if he's unreliable, if he's only there when it's convenient for him, then you need to make a choice. You need to ask yourself if you're willing to accept that. Are you willing to accept someone who only gives you their time when it fits into their life, but isn't willing to make room for you when things get tough? If the answer is no, then you walk away. You walk away because you know that you deserve someone who will show up every single day. You walk away because you know that your time and energy are valuable. You walk away because you understand that consistency isn't just a nice to have. It's a must-have for any relationship that's going to last. At the end of the day, the man who is serious about you will show up consistently. He won't be perfect, but he will be there. And that's the kind of man who's worth your time, your heart, and your energy.